Now, with 14 days left ahead of Israel's 2021 Knesset elections, we continue with the second installment of our Knesset Party's breakdown. And today, we'll be looking to the Arab-Israeli factions vying for your vote, the Joint Arab List and the United Arab List, or Raam. Activist, communist, feminist, pragmatist, extremist? Arab-Israeli Knesset members have been given a lot of titles, some earned, some self-proclaimed, and some completely false or misleading. But the sheer array of differing opinions present in the current Arab parties is part of what makes categorizing their ideology so complex. But currently there are 4 Arab-Israeli parties: Balad, Hadash, Tal, and the United Arab List, or Raam. And until recently, they were all unified under the title of the Joint Arab List, with Hadash chairman Ayman Odeh at the helm, a decision first made in 2015 that earned them 15 seats in Knesset and made them the third largest party behind Yesh Atid and the Likud. The platform, meanwhile, supported by many Israeli Arabs and Bedouin citizens, largely focusing on 2 main topics. First being Israeli Arab life in Israel, with policies including separation of religion and state, exempting Arabs from IDF service, which they already are, and increasing budget for Arab-Israeli community issues like lack of housing, combating violence, and subsidizing Muslim, Christian, and Druze holy places. Then the second topic, Palestinian affairs, including Israeli withdrawal to the pre-1967 borders, the creation of a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, and the dismantlement of Israeli settlements, in addition to the extending of the right of return to Israel for Palestinian refugees and their descendants, which most Israelis consider to be an attack on the very fabric of Israeli society. In fact, the party has often been embroiled in controversy, with most other parties refusing to even consider including the Arab List in a coalition. And this as list members are accused of anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, and supporting terrorism. Most notably when former member Hanin Zoabi attempted to break Israel's maritime blockade around Gaza in 2014, or when former member Jamal Zahalka was accused of supplying intelligence to the Hezbollah terror group, or when former member Basil Ghatas was arrested for supplying contraband cell phones to convicted Palestinian terrorists in prison. And the Central Elections Committee has multiple times disqualified members or whole factions from the Joint List from elections, only to be typically overturned by the High Court. So now fast forward to today, and the political climate has shifted dramatically. Many of the supposedly more problematic members are gone, and the fairly consistent focus on Palestinian rights at the apparent expense of the local Arabs is starting to turn around. But Arab voter turnout already expected to be at an all-time low. And to make matters worse, due to both ideological differences and party term limits, the disillusioned Arab vote is now splitting further. This as the Raam party has split off for a solo run. Raam chairman Mansour Abbas, seen as a religious pragmatist, explaining that his faction will be better off untethered. And already he's been hard at work trying to separate his party as being more moderate by meeting with the Likud, hosting committee meetings on local issues, and breaking with the majority of the rest of the Joint List by voting against them in the Knesset on issues like banning sexual orientation conversion therapy for LGBT individuals. Still, Raam is now expected to fail to even get into the Knesset, polling with just 2.6% of the vote, while the remaining Joint List parties are expected to drop from 11 seats to 8.